Hi, everyone. Okay, so I wanted to go ahead and record myself for Chapter 10 lecture again. And just as normal, go ahead and get something to take some notes with as we are going through here to follow along. I will be telling you guys what I want you to know for final exam purposes and what I think is important as we go along. So it will be crucial for you guys to take notes. All right. So chapter 10 is about nutrition, fitness, and sports. I know a lot of you in our class are currently physically active. So this will be really, really important for those of you that are currently doing some sort of exercise routine or regimen. And for those of you that currently are not exercising, we're going to talk about ways that you can start to integrate in exercise into your daily routine. So it's one of the things that most Americans are not doing. When we've surveyed Americans, we've found that most people do better with trying to switch up their food choices versus getting physically active. It seems to be one of those things that is just hard to do in terms of getting it into your routine. So, and speaking of routine, I have to say that it's probably one of the most important things to do is to have some sort of routine in order to integrate in the physical activity. So, there's two different terms here that we're going to start off with. You've heard both of them, and they both mean two different things, actually. I think a lot of people use them interchangeably, but they're two different things. The first one, physical activity, refers to any movement of skeletal muscles that requires energy. So, that can include literally, parking your car when you're in the parking lot at school and getting out of your car and walking to class. That would be considered physical activity. Exercise is different. Exercise specifically refers to physical activities that are planned, repetitive, and intended to improve physical fitness. So, an example in my mind that pops up is somebody going to the gym, every day at 5 o'clock when they're done with work. That's a very planned, specific type of activity. And when they're there, they're running on the treadmill for 30 minutes and then they're lifting weights for 30 minutes. That would be a specific type of exercise. So that one is a little bit more planned and repetitive if you wanted to use that word exercise versus physical activity. Now, physical activity is kind of under the umbrella of exercise. So you could say you're being physically active at the gym when you're running on the treadmill. So it's kind of one of those things that it's under that umbrella term. All right, I do want you to know this. This is a great slide to know the benefits of physical activity. As you guys know, if we were in class, I would ask you, why do you exercise? So those of you that exercise, think about it. What is your reasoning for why you exercise? Some of you might do it just because it makes you feel better. Maybe it improves your mood. Maybe it helps you sleep better at night. Maybe it relieves stress. For others of you, maybe you have an injury that you had and you need to strengthen your core muscles to make sure that your back doesn't go out again. Or it could be something in terms of health. Maybe you're trying to do it to just have overall better health and improve circulation and decrease your risk of heart disease and diabetes and cancer, etc. So there's so many different reasons of why somebody would want to be physically active and exercise. And this slide says it all. I mean, it really depends on you as an individual, but you can see there's so many awesome benefits to being physically active. If you currently do not have a regular, consistent routine, I highly recommend that you start to think about how to get one. Right now, I have to say, being home more often in the whole coronavirus thing that's going on right now, as a family, I can give you our personal example here. As a family, we have a very consistent schedule at home where we all go out at a certain time of day every single day, and we get out and we get some fresh air and of course socially distancing and all that other stuff with neighbors, but making sure that we're getting our hearts pumping, our blood moving, is so important. And I can tell that in fact yesterday, perfect example, yesterday I was just feeling kind of blah, and I didn't really sleep well the night before, and I just was not feeling that great, and not getting sick or anything, but just not feeling good. And the moment I went outside to go for a walk, I felt my mood improve. I felt good. It just felt good to move my body, and my brain just felt better. I felt like I wasn't thinking well. I was trying to help my son with his homework, and like I felt like thoughts weren't connecting. And after I exercised, it was like a complete turnaround. So sometimes it just takes knowing that the goal at the end of the exercise and how you're going to feel afterwards is worth it. So it's just whatever is motivating to you at that moment in terms of what makes you feel good. Okay, I do want you to know this slide also. This is another good one to know. These are the current physical activity guidelines for Americans. So there's 4 basic pillars here, and you'll notice as we go through each one, it makes sense. The first one is every day choose an active lifestyle and engage in flexibility activities. So what this means is this actually does not count as exercise. This does not count as the repetitive, planned, specific type of activity. This is more of as you're going throughout your day, you're making sure to take the stairs instead of the elevator. You're making sure to park far away in the parking lot. You're making sure to just get up and move around, every 15, 30 minutes or so if you're working at a desk. It's important to keep that movement going. One of the things that we know for sure is that when our body does not move for a period of time, it stiffens up. If you've ever been on a road trip, you know that when you're in the car for hours and you get out, your body kind of hurts a little bit. It's a little achy. It's been sitting in the same specific position for a long period of time. Our bodies were meant to move. So it's really important to keep moving. In fact, it is so important that when they've done studies on this, that they've found that individuals who are moving most throughout the day and having that active lifestyle and engaging in flexibility activities just naturally, they actually live longer than people who are sitting at a desk job and have that planned, they go to the gym every single day at 5 o'clock. So it's the people that are integrating in just movement throughout the day, keeping their bodies moving. That's actually more important if you had to compare the two than going and sitting all day and just getting up for a half an hour and doing a workout and then sitting back down. So it's important to just keep moving is what it comes down to. The second pillar is 5 or more days a week, engage in moderate to vigorous aerobic activities. And this basically means, and I know we talked about this the first week of class when we talked about how much physical activity we need. And what the guideline is 150 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic activity each week. So that would include things, you guys are probably familiar with what aerobic means. It literally means with oxygen. So any type of brisk walking, or if you're running or jogging, I should say, not so much running, but jogging. If you're swimming, if you're cycling, playing a game of soccer, if you're playing a game of basketball, something like that. Those are all considered to be aerobic activities. So you need to do that at least 150 minutes per week. Now that is for adults. For kids, it's actually a little bit more. For kids, they're supposed to have at least 60 minutes of aerobic activity per day. So for adults, it actually is a little bit less. It comes out to be 50 minutes per day if you break it down to 5 or more days per week. So kids actually need more activity. And when we get to the childhood obesity chapter or childhood nutrition chapter, we're going to talk about that because it's pretty amazing how little activity kids are getting nowadays. So, and that can make all the difference in their future health. The next one is 2 or more days a week, engage in strength activities. So this would be any type of, if you are doing, lifting at the gym, or if you're doing sit-ups and push-ups, those all count. You literally do not need to have an object to lift. You can use your own body weight to do strengthening activities. There's so many great ideas. I know if you Google, you can just search online for easy strength activities using your own body weight. There's a ton of different ideas out there. If you have a desk job, they literally have desk job strengthening activities that you can do while sitting in your chair. So there's all different ideas out there. You don't have to go to the gym to do any of these things. You literally can be inside your house or even walk outside your house and do things. And then the last one, what I definitely want you to know, it seems so silly, but it's an important guideline. Do seldom, which means don't do it so much. limit sedentary activities. So I don't know if you guys know how many hours per day you should be, or limiting, I should say, screen time. But this is all done through statistics. They found that people who watch 2 or more hours of TV per day, they're actually at more risk of obesity later on in the future. So the idea is because if you're sitting there and watching TV and you're not doing anything, then they're correlating that with disease. Now, right now, I know my screen time has definitely gone up over the last few weeks, just from being at home more often. And a lot of that is work time. So it's hard because, you don't want to just sit all day long and looking at a screen and all that. So it's really important to get up and just get moving. Like I said, every 15 minutes, every 30 minutes, make that a plan to get up and move around, get your heart pumping, because that will make all the difference. So this is just, again, they want you to not as much just sit around and do nothing and watch TV. Okay. So what I want you to know about the word aerobic is that it literally means with oxygen. So aerobic exercise enhances heart and lung function. It means with oxygen. And this is any type of activity, again, where you're going to be intaking large amounts of oxygen into your body, breathing heavily. They say if you were to it says recommend 30 minutes of moderate intensity, at least 30 minutes, 5 days a week. If you were to be exercising with somebody, you should be able to hold a conversation with them, but it's a little bit of a struggle. So that's how your breathing is. You don't want to be to the point where you are, you can't talk to them because you're breathing so hard, but just to a point where, your heart rate is up, you're having to work a little bit harder in order to get the words out than you normally would if you weren't exercising. So that's kind of how to gauge that. Really important to have that aerobic activity. If you wanted to determine your exercise intensity, you would need to look at your maximum heart rate. And there is a formula here. I don't want you guys to be concerned with the formula because it's easy to figure out. You can just put it into your calculator and all that. And if you're at a gym, sometimes they'll have these posters there that will say how to find your maximal heart rate and the zone that you'd be in. So typically what we're looking for in terms of getting your heart rate up is, a lot of experts will say, to get to at least 140 beats per minute. So if you guys want to take a moment right now, just take 2 fingers, just like the picture of this woman here. Take 2 fingers and put it on the side of your neck, and you'll feel your heart rate there. And what you'll want to do is time your beats for 10 seconds. And however many beats you have in 10 seconds, you times that by 6. So that's basically for a minute, for 60 seconds. And that's your resting heart rate, because right now, I'm presuming that you're just sitting here watching this presentation. But if you were exercising, you'd want to do that same thing. Take a moment, after you're exercising for, maybe like 10 minutes or so, stop for a moment, take your heart rate, and you want to be within the zone right above 140 if you can. That's called the aerobic zone. That's where you're going to be basically burning the most fat. You're going to be getting the most benefits from the exercise. If you go anywhere above that, that's actually called the anaerobic zone. You're actually not utilizing oxygen so much anymore. You're utilizing glucose, which we'll talk about here in a minute. So you want to stick, again, between, I would say 140 and 160 would be the range. Okay. So here's some fitness terms that you'll want to note. The first one is called muscular strength. This is maximal force a muscle can exert against a load at one time. So basically this means if you're lifting weights, how much weight can you lift in that moment? Muscular endurance. You guys probably know that endurance means how long can you go, and muscular endurance means that if you're, again, lifting weights, you would be able to go for a longer period of time. How long can you go lifting those weights? Where muscular power, this one's a little bit different. This is more, it says combine strength with speed for explosive movements such as jumping or throwing. I often tend to think of muscular power being involved in some of those like CrossFit routines, if you guys have ever done any of those, where you're using those more explosive movements throughout, and you're actually going back and forth between aerobic and anaerobic type of exercise. And you want to try to include strengthening activities at least 2 to 3 times a week. Now, they do say non-consecutive, and if we were in class, I would ask you, for those of you that work out, think about why you would not want to do it in consecutive days per week. And the reason comes to be that is you don't want to overdo it. If you are working out your same muscle groups every single day, you're going to get injured, basically, and it's going to work against you rather than work for you. What you're doing when you're doing these type of strengthening activities is you are basically kind of slowly breaking down your muscle tissue, and your body works to repair itself by strengthening those muscle fibers. And when you're doing that, the muscle gets stronger and sometimes even bigger. And so that's kind of the goal of the strengthening activities, is you want to keep that going. All right, let's talk about flexibility. Flexibility exercise is really important. We're seeing even the importance of this as people get older as well too, but it's really important for everybody. It enhances balance and stability. A great exercise for flexibility would be like yoga. I don't know if anyone does yoga in our class. Yoga is a great exercise. I have to tell you guys, I've done it a few times throughout my life, and it's harder than it looks. I remember the first time I did it, and I thought, oh my gosh, this is gonna be so easy. This is gonna be boring, because I like to do like lots of aerobic exercises, and it was hard. I actually had kind of a challenging time. And so for those of you that do yoga consistently, round of applause. I'm clapping right now in case you can't hear it. Round of applause to you, because it is a great strengthening and flexibility type of activity. So it's basically the range of motion. So the more you can stretch, so incredibly important, just for really improving that balance and stability, but also for reducing injuries. We know, again, through statistics and research, that the more that someone has those flexibility type of exercises in their daily routine, they're actually less likely to get injured down the road. So it's really, really important to do those exercises. Okay, 2 to 3 times a week. Now, the book gives you this sample fitness plan. This is Josie's fitness plan. That's great. Hi, Josie. But you know what? Here's the thing that I don't like about this is that, and we see this all the time too in like diet books. They give you example plans of, what you should follow. This is great. But the problem with this is that not everybody is going to want to go to spinning class, and not everybody's going to want to do the stretching routine. Not everyone's going to do walking on Tuesdays and weight machines and spinning class again on Wednesday and so on. So this is just showing you a good sample of maybe some activities for this person, but I don't want you ever to feel that you need to follow this plan. I want you, the whole point of this whole chapter is to find something that you enjoy, because there's nothing worse than forcing yourself to go to the gym if you hate going to the gym, and forcing yourself to work out when you're there. No, I don't want you to do that at all. I want you to find something that makes you happy. So I want you to get to a point that you look forward to doing it every day. That's what fitness and exercise is all about. I want you to look forward to doing it. So, because I've had several moments in my life where I've done something that I absolutely hated, to be honest, and I did it just because I knew it was good for me, but I didn't like it, and it didn't stick. And so I want something now in my life that, I look forward to and enjoy. And now, as a parent, I really like to, work out with my kids, and I like to include them in on like our hikes and our walks and things like that. So that is what I do now at my point in my life right now, that works well for me, and I look forward to it. And the kids do too, which is great. So it's whatever works best for you. And that's what I want you guys to stick with. Okay. Now, there's kind of been a debate over the years of, do you stretch before? Do you stretch after? Do you stretch during the warm up and cool down? There is that element. I know some people that they've swore that they're fine and they've never done a warm up or a cool down ever in their entire life and everything's great. Well, that's wonderful. And if that works for you, that's great. For most people, though, we've found that there does need to be some sort of warm up and cool down period with a workout, because what it does is it really reduces the risk of injury. Um, and because that's the worst. I don't know if you guys have ever been injured from doing workouts. I have, and it just is not fun, because once you injure yourself, then you can't do anything for like the next couple weeks. You have to sit around and let your leg heal or whatever the case may be, and that's not fun. And then now you're back to square one of trying to build up your stamina and your motivation and all that other stuff. So working out is one of those things that it's kind of, once you start it, you don't want that routine to end, because once it ends, then it's really hard to get back into it. So I highly recommend, just from my own personal experience and what I've read and through talking with people and everything over the years, is that to have some sort of warm up. Now, it can be part of your whole routine. So if you're going out for like a jog, maybe just every time you go out for a jog, maybe you warm up by walking for the first 5 to 10 minutes and just getting your muscles warmed up. It's really important to do that. Once your muscles are warmed up, that's the time where you want to stretch. You don't want to stretch when your body is cold and it's first thing in the morning and you just go for a run, because that is the time where you can injure yourself. It's more likely to do it that way. At the end of your workout, a lot of experts recommend that you actually cool down. So it's like the reverse of the warm up. You want to slow down, slow your heart rate down, deep breathe, get to that kind of relaxing part of your workout. And then stretching after that as well is really important. Stretching is so, so important to reduce injury if you can do that. All right, so I am posting a video this week also in terms of the 10 benefits of exercise is what it's called. And you'll notice, I really want you to take note when you're watching that video. They're going to talk about all the different benefits of exercise. But one of the things that they talk about in there has to do with, biologically speaking, of how exercise really helps your body internally. So I know a lot of us probably don't even think about these things, but when we think about exercise, a lot of Americans think about how I will look physically, when I'm done doing my exercise. And yes, that's part of it. But again, in this class, we're not so concerned with what we look on the outside. It's more about what's going on the inside. So that's what we're going to focus on. When you're exercising and when you have a consistent routine, you'll notice that your body adapts to that routine. And what I mean by that is it's adapting internally with all of your systems inside. One of the coolest things that I think is that we've found, it's actually this last point right here, we've found that the more one exercises, the more vascular systems adapt to that exercise. So what I mean is that your circulation increases. You actually increase in your blood capillaries. It's pretty amazing how your body will do this to increase that circulation. Your respiration increases, the ability and effectiveness for your respiratory system definitely increases. The efficiency of your cardiovascular system goes up. The mitochondria within each of your cells improves. It's crazy how your body will adapt to this. In fact, I have it, sometimes I show it in class if you have time, and I don't know if you guys have Netflix. There is a series on there called Ask the Doctor, and if you're able to find it, and maybe even if you don't have Netflix, maybe you can just search for it on the internet. There's a series in there called Ask the Doctor, and there's a specific segment in there about exercise. And I have it written down. It's season 1, episode 8. If you're able to find it, just if you have time, watch it, because it talks and it actually follows a man who does, it's called VO2 max. And it basically tests the amount of volume that a person is uptaking when they are consistently exercising versus somebody who is not consistently exercising. And it is amazing how our bodies adapt to just utilizing the amount of oxygen in our system when you are consistently exercising. It's not on this list here also, but you may also notice, if you guys are currently in an exercise routine, that you may sweat more than somebody that is not exercising all the time. That actually has to do with your body's efficiency system for cooling itself off. So and that's a good thing. I know you might be more sweaty than your, friends or peers who don't exercise as much, but it's actually a good thing. Your body is more efficient at cooling itself off than somebody who isn't. So it's pretty amazing if you're looking at all these things biologically. We did talk about aerobic exercise. I do want you guys to know what that is. Again, it literally means with oxygen. So you're doing physical activity in which large muscles move in a rhythmic manner for sustained periods of time. It involves metabolic pathways that require oxygen and improves functioning of the cardiovascular and respiratory systems. So basically, again, that would be, jogging, jump, if you're jumping rope, maybe, if you are walking, if you are rowing, if you're bicycling, if you're swimming. I'm trying to think of all the aerobic activities. But those all are examples of that. Compared with, and I do want you to know this also, anaerobic activity, which basically means without oxygen, anaerobic, without oxygen. So these are different. These are going to be the activities, for instance, like weightlifting, sit-ups, push-ups. They're considered to be short duration, intense activities. You're actually utilizing glucose for energy production, not so much oxygen. So energy formation from glucose does not require oxygen. When you're doing aerobic activities, you require oxygen. When you're doing anaerobic activities, you are not required to have oxygen, because what's happening is, if you guys go back, if we remember from chapter 4, this is when we were in the classroom, we talked about something called glycogen. Glycogen is a storage form of glucose. This is the time where those glycogen stores are going to be now pulled from to support this anaerobic exercise. That's definitely something to note, because the type of exercises that require glucose or glycogen, the storage form of glucose, are going to be these anaerobic exercises. One of the examples of that is actually sprinting. That's always a surprising example, because people think sprinting, oh, that's just running fast. That's aerobic exercise. Actually, no, because if you're running to an intensity level that's too fast, which is sprinting, that's how we're going to categorize sprinting. Remember, that's running as fast as you can. You can only do it for so long, because what happens, there's actually a term for it. You'll actually do something called, quote, hitting the wall. And what that means is literally your glycogen storage forms have exhausted themselves. So once that happens, you cannot go anymore. Your brain is telling your muscles to stop. You can't go anymore. And so you literally hit the wall, quote. So let me show you this chart here, because this actually shows you a little bit better of some activities that require glucose versus the activities that require fat. So if you look over here, let's start off here on this left-hand side: swimming, walking, house cleaning, biking, cycling, and gardening. Some of these examples I have to laugh at, but it's basically showing you some aerobic activities here. So these are more aerobic, and you'll notice that the aerobic activities require more fat, right? It's not requiring glucose. You're utilizing your fat stores for energy during these type of activities. You're utilizing oxygen to power your body and to get blood, your blood circulating and the oxygen throughout the body. But you'll notice if you go to this end, these are all the activities that require more glucose. And these are the anaerobic activities. So the examples here are racquetball, sprinting, rowing, wrestling, digging. I'm looking at shoveling. Digging and shoveling, weightlifting, push-ups, and sit-ups. These are more anaerobic activities, and these activities require more glucose to power these. So it does not require oxygen. These are not aerobic activities. And then the ones that are in the middle here, these are more like, if I had to categorize them, they're like start-stop activities. So we have basketball, tennis, ice hockey, soccer, running, I don't know. I guess they're thinking about not running consistently. Scrubbing floors, manual movement of your own wheelchair. They're kind of odd activities here in the middle, but these are more of like start-stop activities. So they're not really all aerobic, and they're not really all anaerobic. They're somewhere in the middle. So you're utilizing glucose and fat for that. And then the longer you go, the more hours that you go, or the more minutes that you go with exercise, basically for aerobic activities, you're going to be utilizing more fat along the way to get those. That's why a lot of, when people are trying to lose weight, they say aerobic activity is so, so important because you are going to be burning and utilizing your fat stores in your body. However, it's really important to do those strengthening activities as well because you're going to be utilizing and pushing your muscles and increasing that muscle strength, which is important because that uses more calories. These are all the heat-related illnesses. In class, one of the things that I would do is I would have you guys look at this chart, and then we'd also talk about sports drinks. And I would have you guys, one of the things I like to do is just I would break you guys into small groups and have you guys think of ways that you could incorporate sports drinks and why and when they're important, how, what's the point to them, that type of thing. Compared with energy drinks. And because energy drinks would be more of the category of like Monster and, Jolt and, I don't even know what are the other ones? Here we go. Monster, Red Bull, Rockstar. That's the other one I was thinking of. 5-hour energy shots. I don't know if you guys ever had those before. But there's a difference between these and this. And basically, sports drinks would be an example would be like Gatorade or even what's the other one? Vitamin water. So what they are drinks. If you look at the ingredients here, it tells you here. It's basically water, sugar, salt, and then some electrolytes. Flavor, to make it taste good. And those electrolytes are minerals. We just talked about minerals last week. And some of those minerals are electrolyte minerals, which help with basically like the electrical currents in your body. And during activity, if you're sweating profusely, meaning lots of sweat is coming out of your body, you're losing electrolytes. And electrolytes are important to replace right away. So the recommendation is that if you are going to be aerobically active for 60 minutes or more, it's important to get those electrolytes back in. So that would be the time to have a sports drink. It's actually not necessary to have a sports drink for anyone who is not being physically active. It's just basically extra calories, extra sugar, all that. But it actually is important to replace those glucose, help maintain the glucose level, and also to help increase and supply the electrolytes for your system. So again, the rule of thumb is after 60 minutes or more. You don't really need to do it before that. And then also in class, I'd have you guys research these energy drinks. Some of them are loaded with just tons of caffeine if you look at the list here. And these are, typically like the smaller size. Well, I guess this one's 20 ounces. But these energy drinks that I see now are humongous. They're huge. So I would times a lot of these by 2. And you have to be careful with the caffeine content that's in a lot of these energy drinks because they sometimes just load them up with the caffeine. And if you're having multiple energy drinks per day, that could be kind of scary because you can have some heart palpitations. Young people are having heart attacks because of having too many energy drinks or even pre-workouts. If you're overdoing it on pre-workouts, you have to be careful with that. So I've had students in the past that have had multiple, pre-workouts throughout the day just to kind of keep their energy levels up. And what happens is it's caffeine, as you probably know, is considered to be a drug. And so you get addicted to it. And you get to a level where, you need to have more and it becomes like an addiction. And if you're having too much, your body can, it's too much for your body to handle. So it can mess with that electrical activity in your system, and oftentimes it affects your heart. So if you feel your heart having, palpitations, or if you feel like if it's racing and if your heart rate's too fast, you can feel it, that's not a good sign. You really need to, lower the caffeine amount per day. Now they've done studies, and this would come up in class too. We've done studies with just straight coffee, and coffee actually by itself, 1 cup of coffee can be just perfectly enough to give you the energy, the kickstart that you need for maybe motivating you to go work out. Anything above that is actually considered to be excess. So, and I'm not talking about like Starbucks Frappuccinos. I'm talking about just a plain cup of coffee without anything in it. So if you're interested in learning more about that, I would definitely search that. Look up coffee and how it can help support workouts. There's actually a lot of evidence about that. So it's kind of interesting. There's something called carb loading, and you may have done this before if you've ever been like on a sports team where the night before you had a lot of carbohydrates the night before. I think we talked about this when we talked about carbohydrates in our chapter. But what it's doing is it's literally increasing your muscle glycogen stores. So that is the whole point of carb loading before an event. And there is evidence that this actually works. So if you are doing some sort of event, you might want to consider doing this. There's actually a whole schedule that has been researched, and they've found that this can help with, supplying the energy that you need for your competition or for your event that you're doing. So this particular example here is giving you 6 days before and the routine that you'd want to do. So on day 6 before the competition, you'd want to exercise, practice whatever you're doing for 60 minutes. And make sure you're getting 450 grams of carbohydrate. So, and it looks like if you're looking at the schedule here, 450, 450, 450, and then 3 days before the event, it goes up 600, 600. On the day before, you actually rest, and you have 600 grams of carbohydrates. And what you're doing is you're maximizing your glycogen storage form in your body. Now, do not do this if you're not doing an athletic event, because what will happen is if you're having too many calories, basically too many carbs per day, and you're not utilizing them, it's going to be a storage form of fat, basically. So this is only for somebody who is planning to do a major event, like a race, or if they have some sort of big match coming up or a big competition or something like that. That's when you'd want to do that. There actually is dietitians have actually said there's a very specific pre-endurance event meal that you can have on the day of. They recommend having no fat, basically, because fat will slow down your digestive system, and very little fiber. Fiber will also do that, and it can actually, sometimes you have too much fiber, it can make you feel full, which overall is a great thing, but on the day of an actual event, you don't want to do that because that can slow you down. You want to have some sort of light meal 2 to 4 hours before the event. So say you're going to be in a race and, you wake up that morning, having something light, maybe like an energy bar that has a little bit more carbohydrates in there and less fat, less fiber. What dietitians have said, a very specific example, is to have a bowl of cornflakes. Because if you look at the ingredients of cornflakes, it's very simple. It's basically corn, and I think there's a little bit of salt in there, maybe lightly sweetened in some cases, and maybe not in other cases, but it's pretty basic. And if you have that with maybe some, almond milk or something like that, that will really help you get the energy that you need. It's light on your stomach, and it's not going to cause any gas or bloating or indigestion or anything like that, and it will get you through your event that you need. So that's what a lot of dietitians will actually recommend. Now, I don't know why here they have a picture of it looks like pasta or something with some chicken. I guess that would be okay. Again, you just need to watch out for the fat content. It looks like there's something creamy on there. I don't know. Maybe that's just my picture that I'm looking at. But I would recommend maybe the light bowl of cereal, or maybe like an energy bar, or even maybe like a protein shake that you don't want to have, again, too much protein. But if you're having some sort of vegetarian protein or vegan protein, I think that would be okay. This is just talking about how fat adapts during, for endurance athletes, and how people are now turning to keto diets, and some people have had some success with that. So I would say right now it says research is mixed right now on the best approach. I think because we don't really have, to be honest, that much research about it yet. It's easy to make some theories at this point, but I think it's harder to make some concrete evidence and say that this works for sure, because we have to have years of research and years of study to say yes or no if this works or not. So I would say at this point, do what works best for you. And I think because every body is different, that's the thing too, is that it's hard to say just a blanket statement for everybody. See what works best for you. I had a student last semester that was doing keto, and she swore by it, and she said that it helped her workouts and everything. And so that's great for her. But then I also had in that same class, I had another student that did keto, and he told the class that it did not work well for him at all, and it actually slowed him down, and he felt awful when he was doing it. So, it depends on you and your mindset and what works best for you as well. So, it's interesting right now. Again, like I mentioned, the research is mixed on the best approach, but what works best for you at this point, I would say. Okay. Okay. I don't think I want to go through the rest here. That you can look at this on your own if you'd like. It's just talking about different things that work. They're called. Let me go back just so you can see the word of it. Or the term. It's called ergogenic aid. And basically, this is anything that will improve your exercise performance. So it could be psychological, it could be nutritional, it could be mechanical, it could be a drug. And so it's just giving you some examples here of all the things that are available, whether they be legal or illegal to use. But a lot of them are harmful. I would say one of the most popular things that's on the market in terms of benefiting exercise would be the caffeine. But again, look at this reality. Read that when you have a moment, because it's talking about, again, how too much can be not good. And having that 1 cup of coffee only can actually be beneficial. But anything above that, from what I've read, can be actually harmful. So anyway, look at these when you have a chance. You can look at the PowerPoint on your own. But there's all kinds of crazy things out there. And it seems like, there's so many new things that are popping up too. So just be careful with all that stuff. Remember, the FDA does not oversee any of those things. We're basically guinea pigs when it comes to those supplements when they pop up on the shelves. So just be careful of that, and know that over the years, there's been a lot of things that have been pulled off the shelf. Specifically, these types of supplements, anything that enhances performance, that swears that it's going to make your muscles get bigger and make you stronger, anything that's going to, make you lose weight. Those are the things that typically are risky. So just kind of be careful with that stuff and do your research beforehand. All right, guys, that's it for chapter 10. And for this week, you're going to be, like I mentioned, you're going to be looking at the video on exercise. And after you do that, you're going to be completing an assignment on the barriers to exercise. So when you click on the assignment, you'll see that there is a little questionnaire that I want you guys to do on your own. You do not need to submit that. That's just for your own information. And you'll notice at the end, when you score everything, anything that has a score of 5 or above means that is a possible personal barrier for you for exercise. So I want you to be honest with yourself. Nobody else is looking at this except for you. And then think about why that would be a barrier for you for exercise. And then the activity that you're going to be doing is you're going to be looking at 7 different barriers to exercise. And even if it doesn't apply to you, I want you to think of at least 2 ways that somebody, either you or somebody else, could overcome that barrier, whether you have it or not. So I want you to do that for each of those barriers. And then once you do that, you're going to submit that to me. And that's due on Thursday, again at 11:59. All right, guys, if you have any questions about anything, don't hesitate to contact me. I'm here to help you guys. Have a great week, and I'll see you online. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.